Hello and welcome to the BACP Therapy Today podcast.
Hello, it's my great pleasure today to talk to Charlene Douglas, a BACP registered counsellor and specialist in sex and relationships. And she's here today to talk about being a resident counsellor on the Channel 4 programme, The Sex Clinic. So welcome to the podcast, Charlene, and thanks for inviting us into your world.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you.
So let's start by, if you can tell us a bit about the Channel 4 series that you're involved with. So it's called The Sex Clinic. What can you tell us?
So The Sex Clinic, it was aired on E4, and it's actually just finished. It finished about a week ago. So there was like 8 episodes of the show. So it's really about young people, so under the age of 30, that want to have an STI check, but they also want to speak to a sex expert or sexual health professional around sexual issues as well, or relationship issues. So this was series 2. In series 1, there wasn't a counsellor or a psychologist on board as such, but they wanted to try something a little bit different this year. And so they invited me to come along to help some of the clients with some of their sexual issues.
Right, okay. So they invited you to come along. How did that come about, Charlene?
So really interestingly, I received a Facebook message through my personal Facebook page from one of the producers. And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is just maybe a little bit of a scam. So I didn't actually respond for a couple of days. And then I just went back to the message and I thought, let me just send her a message and say, I'm not sure if this message was for me, because I don't know you. I was like, I don't know who you are. And she messaged back like straight away and she was like, no, this message was absolutely for you. I'm one of the producers on E4's Sex Clinic, and I just wanted to know whether we could have a chat with you. We'd be really keen to have you on the show. So at this point, my heart was beating. Okay. I was like, okay. So she was like, can you talk now? So we had a quick phone call conversation. She spoke to me about the show. I was familiar with the show because I'd seen it last year. And yeah, we had a conversation. She asked me whether I would be okay to have like a Skype video session in a couple of hours. And I was like, yeah. Okay. And then literally it all happened so quickly. So I had the Skype interview, then I went down to their studios to sort of meet the team and to sort of see what I looked like on camera. They need to sort of see what that looked like. And then a few days later they said, we think you're good for the role. Join us. It's as quick as that, really.
Yeah, that sounds quick. And so then you were into the filming, and what did that involve?
So filming took place over a period of 2 weeks. So we filmed it last summer in July, and it was lovely. I felt like a bit of a celebrity. So they organised for a taxi to come and collect me in the morning, and then took me down to London Guy's Hospital where it's filmed. And it's the world of media. So you spend like most of the day sort of waiting around. They do your makeup, they give you a selection of clothing to choose from, and then the producers decide which one they actually want you to wear. And you're literally waiting around, sort of speaking to the makeup artist, speaking to the other presenters until the floor manager comes to get you. At which point your heart is completely beating so very fast. And I just remember walking down this long corridor to the set. And then I had a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on TV. It was that moment. It felt really nerve-wracking at that point. And then, you then record the show, meet the clients. It's an interesting experience. You've got like sort of 2 cameramen in the room, and they're sort of walking around with this sort of camera on their back. So it's like a bit like Ghostbusters type thing with these cameras on them. And then it's time to go. You start, and it's an interesting experience. There was, at the very beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, there are cameras in my face. But then after a while, you forget the cameras are even there. and you just sort of zone into the story of the client.
Okay, I did wonder about that, how it felt to do therapy very publicly, because normally it's just us, isn't it, in a room with a client or two clients, for instance. How was that?
Yeah, you know, it's a different version of therapy. You know, it's not, you know, you have to take into consideration confidentiality and, you know, sort of protecting the client as well. So, you know, of course, there were questions that I wouldn't ask the client. You know, I didn't ask any questions about, you know, their parents or childhood, or too much information about other people. And in any case, even if I did, E4 wouldn't have shown that. So it's a different type of therapy. You know, the main thing is that the client brings the story, and that whatever I say, I also recognise that millions of viewers will be watching this and can get something from it. So just a classic one of the examples, one of the guys that I spoke to on the show, Matt, you know, he was a kind of like Jack the Lad kind of guy. And he said to me, you know, I thought I was just coming on this show, just have a little bit of a laugh and just kind of like talk about some stuff that's going on for me. And then when I met with you, it's like, oh, like this is a little bit deeper for me than I realised. But what's really lovely about that is that, you know, this is a young guy that's willing to be open on national television, and he's helped millions of people. So, you know, when you look at like E4's Facebook page, you know, when they're commenting on the show, there are people saying, wow, this really helped me. You know, my gosh, this is me. Like, I really need to kind of get some therapy. So it encourages people to go and get therapy of that age group that maybe wouldn't have usually sort of gone to therapy. So it's a different type of therapy on camera, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And it's a younger age group. And you would imagine, wouldn't you, that the kind of taboos around sex and intimacy are being dismantled. But, I mean, do you think sex is talked about as openly as it should be these days?
I think we're getting better. I think if I think about my era, when I grew up sort of in the 90s, it really wasn't spoken about hardly at all. I mean, you'd sort of speak to, you know, friends in the playground, and if you were lucky enough to have a friend who had an older brother or an older sister, you know, that would give them information, then you'd find out a little bit more. Then you had to kind of try and piece it all together and work out, is this right or is this not right? And, you know, sort of became a bit confused. Or, you know, I remember reading magazines like More magazine or Smash Hits back in the day, and I think I'm telling my age a little bit there by sort of mentioning those magazines, but yeah, you know, when you read those sorts of magazines, you kind of find out a little bit more about sex and relationships, and you try to piece it together. I feel like now we've got the internet now, so there is more information available, and in schools they're doing, I think, a better job at teaching sex in a healthier way, but I still feel like we've got a way to go. And then you've got, you add porn into the mix of that, which is so readily available via phones and laptops and whatever it may be. And you know, it takes young people in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I wondered if there were any themes or patterns that came through in the problems that people were coming and talking about on the show.
Yeah, I felt that there was like a conflict between what society wanted of them and what they actually wanted. And it kind of felt like the themes were quite similar in terms of, you know, them understanding intimacy, them understanding what it was to listen to what your body actually wants. I remember saying to some of them that, you know, your body doesn't lie. It tells you what it needs, but it's whether you listen to it. And I think what's really difficult with that is that, you know, the media, you know, our culture, it's so powerful. You know, the voice of the media and of our culture is so loud, so powerful that sometimes it's easier to hear what it tells you rather than what your body's telling you. And so when a client comes to me, and the same obviously with being on the show, it's like I slow it down a little bit for them. I help them to slow it down and ask them questions around kind of, but what are you feeling? And sometimes it's me having to ask that a few times before they actually are like, oh, wow, actually, no, I really don't want to do that. I really don't like that, you know. So yeah, there's just so much pressure on young people and older people as well. I suppose it's not just young people, is it? I think, you know, it's older people as well. You know, we're also on the road of discovery when it comes to sex. So
absolutely.
yeah.
I just wondered what attracted you into this area. There is a great need for it, absolutely, and I think it's going to grow. As you mentioned, the porn, I think that's going to impact on a whole generation coming through. But I just wondered what attracted you to specialise in this, because it was your background is psychodynamic. Am I right in saying? And then
yeah.
So tell me, what went on in that journey for you?
Yeah, so I think, when you sort of do your sort of general counselling course, you're taught so much. And I always think it's quite important to specialise in something. And, for me, that involves, doing a psychosexual course. That involves, everything I'm really passionate about the subject. So, even in my pastime, I'm reading a book on erectile dysfunction or something like that. That's my hobby. Or I'll be going onto YouTube and, looking at, an article on YouTube, whatever it may be. So I think it's really important to kind of specialise in an area to, maybe to give the client the best possible service. But I think it has to be something that you're really passionate about. And I think for me, I grew up in an environment where sex wasn't really spoken about. And that's not to say that I couldn't go to my parents and ask, but, you just felt a sense that everyone was uncomfortable, so you just kind of made it up as you went along. And, with that, there was lots of confusion, sometimes feeling a bit isolated, just, feeling a little bit lost. So I think for me, I really want to help, particularly, particularly young people, to not go through that, not have to go through that, to be able to ask questions. So, for example, there are women that I meet who have never ever had an orgasm. Now, that's not to say that when you have sex that the goal has to be orgasm. Like, of course not. The point is that there's so much to sex that it's the whole sexual experience that should be, thrilling, not just, I need to have an orgasm. But I think for some of these women who wanted to know what an orgasm felt like, but just didn't know how to do it or what to do, it's a privileged position to be in, to be able to say to them, okay, this is what you need to do. This is, these are the conditions you need in order for your body to feel really relaxed and for you to have an orgasm. And, I remember, just speaking to so many clients where, worked with them over a period of time, they'd come back and they say, do you know what, Charlene, thank you so much. I feel like I know so much more about sex. I know so much more about my body. I know so much more about intimacy now. And I think that for me is priceless. That kind of feedback is priceless. Yeah.
It comes back to what we believe we're doing, doesn't it? That counselling changes lives.
Absolutely.
And so you talked there about your work with clients, your normal work, but in the work on the TV, then there is the ethical issue, isn't it? Isn't there, about, whether you should really be doing this kind of counselling and whether people are aware of what they're consenting to, the clients on the TV, whether they're aware that they're consenting to potentially their very intimate and personal problems being kind of public viewing forever, really, potentially, and findable. They, 20 years time, they might have moved on and their life might be very different, but someone Googling it could find this TV program. So I just wondered how you kind of made peace with that, and also how you are involved in looking after the clients. Do you ever carry on seeing them after the TV program, for instance?
Yeah, so when I was invited to come onto the show, of course I was really excited to be on the show, but also for me as a counsellor, I was concerned about, how maybe vulnerable some of these people might be. These people don't get paid to go onto the show, so I couldn't understand what the motivation would be necessary to want to share, I suppose, your very personal information in that way. I spoke to a number of friends. A lot of my friends are therapists themselves, so I spoke to a lot of friends. I spoke to my supervisor about it. And what I decided was that I was going to go on the show and I was going to ask questions. I was going to ask questions to the executive producer and to the other producers to find out what support was in place for these people and how and what the aftercare looked like, etc. And so when I spoke to the team, what I found out is that all of the people that came onto the show had an assessment by a clinical psychologist. And so some people, although they wanted to be on the show, it was deemed that it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be on the show because their story was too vulnerable, they were too vulnerable. So they then chose the people that they thought would be suitable for the show, but they were still supported. So at any point, if they ever felt that it was too much for them, they didn't want to do it, they could pull out. And if they ever wanted to speak to the psychologist, they also could do that. So they had that support as well. Some of the cases on the show weren't aired. So I actually met with, I think, about 5 or 6 clients, and they only showed 3. And I have my suspicions as to why they didn't show the others. I think that some of the scenes were maybe a bit too emotional, and so they didn't show some of them. So things like that kind of really made me kind of feel more at ease and at peace. In terms of sort of seeing clients after the show, so all of the clients that went on the show, they were offered aftercare via the so Firecracker is a production company. So via the Firecracker production team, they offered sort of ongoing support with the psychologist. And then there was some of those clients that said that they would prefer to meet with me because they'd sort of built that relationship with me on the show. So I met a few of them for like some sort of follow-up sessions. But yeah, I suppose in terms of sort of future clients, I probably can't say too much in terms of confidentiality, but what I would say is that they all had access to me via social media, so via my business page on Instagram, and a few of them have liked pages, so I'm accessible to them if they want that support. But in any case, because the Firecracker Studio, the production company, they have psychologists on site. So for me, I think sort of when I looked at the whole picture, it felt like these clients were supported and they were really looked after. So I felt okay about that.
Okay. And I wondered how appearing on Tees impacted on your work generally. Has it brought you more clients or any other opportunities?
Yeah, so I suppose as I expected, there's definitely more inquiries that come my way. I think, because of what's happening at the moment with this pandemic, I probably haven't had as many as I probably would have. But I have had quite a few new clients that have come my way that have said, I've seen you on the show. I'd be really keen to work with you. A lot of those clients have similar issues to what they saw me deal with on the show. So that's been really lovely. There's also been, various articles that I've written, various interviews that I've sort of taken part in. And I think for me, one of the highlights was being invited to talk at a women's conference abroad. And yeah, that was really lovely. It's on hold at the moment because of what's going on with this virus. But, things like that, I probably would never have had access to. So, that would be my absolute dream, to be able to share some of my experiences in the world of sex and relationships with hundreds and thousands of women. That would just be phenomenal. So yeah, some great opportunities have come my way. I think for me, I'd like to still think that I'm fairly young. So I'm happy that I can reach a different audience. And, in terms of my race, so I'm Black Caribbean. So hopefully it also means that more people of colour will come to therapy, because there is a bit of a taboo in the culture around kind of accessing mental health services. So I hope that I reach out to a range of people, but I think particularly, younger people and people sort of colour, so ethnic people as well, will be really great.
Great, well done. And finally, we all know, and particularly right at the moment, it can be really challenging to make a living as a therapist. And I just wondered if you had any advice for members on how to make it work.
So I think that we have to utilize all of the communication methods out there. So, you have to work out who your audience is. So if you're trying to access more young people, then Instagram, I think, is really, really great. Facebook, I have had not as many sort of referrals through my Facebook page, but a lot through Instagram, and also utilizing LinkedIn. So recently, a colleague of mine said, you really should use LinkedIn in a better way. And what she had done was literally add anyone and everyone on LinkedIn.
Right.
And she said, everyone needs a counsellor, or they know someone that needs a counsellor. Mm-hmm. And I was a bit reluctant to do that at first, because I didn't want people to sort of come back to me and say, sorry, do I know you? Did we work together? Or, why have you added me randomly? But it's worked really well. And, there's been a lot of referrals that have come through LinkedIn. And I think, you just have to work out who your audience is. And yeah, you're right, living as a therapist, I think if you work for the NHS, or, if you work for an organisation, it's probably easier in terms of referrals and you get standard wage. But when you have a private practice, you are your own brand. And so you have to write articles, you have to, deliver workshops. It's important to do things for free sometimes, to present your services for free. I've presented at a number of events voluntarily, and from that, I've had new clients come my way. Some of them that I've seen for about 2 years, weekly clients for 2 years, and that's just for me attending an event voluntarily. So I think it is just going out there, being present, being visible. I think the old school way of just being the counsellor in the corner, no one really knows who you are, doesn't bring clients as much as it would if you really make sure you're really out there. So
I absolutely agree. I think we can fall into the trap of thinking, okay, I've done all the qualifications, I have the experience, I can just list that on a directory, and then people will come to me. But in fact, we have to go out and make it a lot easier for the clients to find us, and the right clients to find us, and also to help them to understand what we're offering,
absolutely,
how that differs from what everyone else is offering. And Charlene, you seem to have certainly done it in a very major explosive way with the TV series.
I don't do things by half. I don't do things by half. I think any opportunity that comes your way, I think, if possible, grab it with both hands, and with this, that's what I did.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great to talk to you, Charlene, and just get an insight into what's involved in being on TV, and also into your beliefs around the importance of sex and relationship therapy. So thank you very much for sharing that with us today. And,
you're welcome.
Good luck with the future, and here's to another series of the Sex Clinic.
Yay! Thank you. Thanks for having me. You take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the BACP Therapy Today podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it. And remember, if you've got any ideas or suggestions on what we might include in future editions, please do not hesitate to get in touch. Thanks again.